You've landed at Spark Launch, the guide star for embracing what it means to be neurodiverse. Here, we navigate mental health triumphs and tribulations from all across the spectrum, charting a course through the shared experiences that unite us, and discovering how to embody the unique strengths within neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, igniting your spark and launching it into a better tomorrow. Today, we are joined by Sam Mitchell, the Autistic creator and host of Autism Rocks and Rolls, a nonprofit and podcast dedicated to taking the stigma off autism. He's a TEDx speaker, international motivational speaker, college broadcasting student, and executive director who's interviewed everyone from Dr. Temple Grandin to WWE superstars. And he's here to show us that autism is not a limitation. Welcome to Spark Launch.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Thank you, Sam. Your bio was so fascinating. I want to understand what was going on at that time that you had this desire to start a podcast and share what was going on with you and with the world.
Well, I think part of I made my podcast was because of anger. For 15 years, was very depressed. I got bullied, dealt with exclusion, all the stereotypes in school. And I finally had enough, and I decided to quit people pleasing. Well, then after my best friend's Riley dance marathon, I noticed people coming out with cameras, and I thought it would be cool to join. They said join next year because they had a lot of projects in the work. Okay, cool. I joined next year, and that's where I found out the podcasting and joined my high school's media club. But that's where I found the podcasting. That's where I found video, audio, and I just found it fascinating, and it clicked with me. So I decided not to wait till college, even though I did go to college and I got an associate's degree in broadcasting, to start Autism Rocks and Rolls in high school because I didn't want to wait till college to expand my skills. I wanted to start now because I've always believed in starting early.
So cool. You didn't think twice. You didn't overthink. You just said, I'm going to go with the flow and just start. And you talked about bullying and in high school. I want to dig a little bit deeper if you're willing to share and want to understand what goes on in school with neurodivergent children.
Well, I think it's because people aren't used to those who are different. They like people who follow trends, and that's just not who I am. I live in my own world half the time, and I live at my own pace and in my own bubble.
Yeah, so you always lived in your bubble, and people didn't recognize you or appreciate your bubble.
I still live in my own bubble.
Bubbles are safe, right? I mean, that's why, it's interesting that introverts, going off of that, kind of are always feel like they're stigmatized or demonized in some way. Like it's weird to be an introvert, but be it autistic people who like quiet and alone time or like being in kind of this one space surrounded by the things and people that I actually care about, it's always sort of treated like you need to be extroverted to be part of the world. But there's nothing wrong with just having a bubble that you feel safe in. I mean, that's how tribe systems work. That's even by yourself. You can be a tribe of one most of the time, honestly.
That's how I envision my tribe right there. Is I walk alone, but then who's behind me, you wonder? Nobody. It's actually literally people with my head and my brain. It's a bunch of Sam's replicated. There's a clone machine that existed.
Honestly, that's why I get along mostly with, like post-diagnosis. I was diagnosed a lot later in life, but I find that now I naturally and want to gravitate towards being with others on the spectrum. And I get along with them just a lot better. I fit in with them. They feel a part of me. Like those are the people I want to spend time with. And there's nothing, of course, wrong with that. I think that's actually great that when you are able to find like, no, those are my neurotypes. That's my neuroculture, more or less. Going back to starting the podcast a little bit, what was the experience of recording the first few episodes of that like?
Well, I would say I had some experience. I had to do some self-voice training because if you listen now, it's a lot more faster and more. Back then, it was more of trying to figure out what am I going to say, how am I going to elaborate, because the way I operate is I'm very short and sweet to the point. It's very funny. My friend and I, he did a TED talk, and we're both had different speaking styles. The way he speaks is he can elaborate. You give him a piece of pie, we'll go with pumpkin pie because it's Thanksgiving. He can elaborate on it. Me, I'm the polar opposite. I'll just say it's pumpkin pie with whipped cream on it. He could go like, it's pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie was invented by. He could go like, it's pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie was invented by.
Yeah, it's true. We're all so different. And I love the way you claim yourself and you are who you are. And I love it. I love when people grow up like that because they're not carrying trauma. Because the undoing of the trauma takes a long time because it becomes part of your system. And so it just makes me happy when people say, this is who I am.
I'll go more into that of who I am because you said about carrying the trauma. I still carry it. I still carry it to this day. That's why I am more introverted because I don't like to socialize. I'm just not a fond of people. You think it's might be crazy because I do podcasts and speaking engagements, but after the speaking engagements, I'm exhausted, man. People are exhausting. And after my gig is done, I'd rather go be in a cave.
Oh,
No,
totally.
yeah.
I'm much the same way. Like this is not a natural thing that I'm inclined to do. I'm much more of a cave monster. It takes a lot out of me to do this kind of stuff, both in podcasting and other things that I do that involve talking and interacting with people. It's not easy to do. Sometimes it's going back to the trauma piece. It's traumatic to go through sometimes in small little ways, especially when you're prone to overthinking or ruminating on your reaction or how you go about things. It takes maximum effort sometimes to form sentences going off of like speaking and stuff like that. I'm much the same way. I've actually always joked that when it comes to autistic people and why I think I work better in groups is there's this thing when you're becoming like a peer supporter or something. Everybody knows what motivational interviewing is. Most people do, which always ends in a lot of open-ended questions and stuff. But to me, autistic people, they don't really speak in questions. They speak in open-ended statements. Like everything sort of ends with an ellipses. So it's like anytime I'm in a group, no one's really asking each other questions necessarily. They're saying statements that then is being followed up by another person who then catches the end of that one. And then it's round robin conversation. It's just interesting, like the communication differences. And when you're not speaking to someone neurodivergent, it's extra exhausting because you're not being followed up on in the same way that I found, at least.
Yeah, I don't think people give us enough details.
I don't like nebulous questions. Like, how are you feeling? What do you mean, like right now? Or like in what aspect of my life are you asking me how I'm feeling right now? There's like a lot different parts to that. And we need details. We need like meat on the bone, more or less.
Agree with that.
Yeah. So going back a little bit to your like origin story, you said you were diagnosed with autism at around age 4. When you look back now, what were some of the early signs or experiences that stand out for you?
Well, I've slept since then, so it'll be hard to really hone in on it highly. But what I can tell you from what my parents told me is I was organizing food. I was having meltdowns. I was showing classic symptoms. If you said my name, apparently I didn't look at you. So if you said Sam, it was just a whisper in the wind.
And when you were diagnosed, I've been listening to the podcast and reading your story a lot last few weeks. And part of your story kind of resonated a lot with me just based on something that I see others be kind of forced to experience a lot, which is a lot of other families telling your parents, I'm so sorry when your diagnosis came. And your family's response to that being kind of oppositional to that thought process, which was, we're not sorry, kind of going about it that way. And how did that mindset shape the way you see yourself today?
I think I know what you're talking about. Well, if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, you may have listened to my episode on why I'm here. Well, the reason why I said that is because at the end of the day, yeah, I'm sorry that I got diagnosed with it because it can be a burden. at points. I'm not going to BS it. It can be a burden to not communicate well, but I can't help the card I was dealt. Yet I realized after 15 years, and I should have learned sooner, but as they say, better late than never. Despite the cards being put on me, I could still do something about it.
Because you found one of your biggest strengths of speaking freely and created this podcast. I was just wondering, what are your other strengths? What else have you discovered about yourself that you enjoy doing, and any patterns there?
I've always enjoyed being very creative. I've always enjoyed professional wrestling. I've always enjoyed the outdoors. Unfortunately, it's cold where I am currently right now, and I think I probably won't be enjoying the outdoors for a long while just because of it being 36 degrees, and I don't like that. I'd rather have 78 degrees, for example, and then I enjoy the broadcasting clearly, and then there's definitely a lot of country in me, so you can't take a country boy out of the country, so I've always enjoyed some, let's call it country habits. So fishing is definitely a hobby of mine. I wouldn't say hunting is, though, just because never been formally trained on a gun. And I would also say, you could say professional wrestling, as I said earlier, is a country habit. Definitely enjoy watching television. And then I also have enjoyed a lot of eating. So definitely a meat and potatoes type of guy.
So fun fact about me is I do production for a indie wrestling company. I'm a big wrestling fan myself, and I know you've interviewed quite a few people from that realm. So, and I know that as a fan, that must have been an incredibly exciting thing for you to be able to sit in and have like a really deep conversation that those types are not particularly used to having.
It's always funny. I go to an annual pro wrestling convention center up in Indy for a pro wrestling event, and I thank all these people in line with some of the wrestlers I've had because they'll appear at that convention sometimes. I've seen RVD appear there, Kane, Mick Foley, and I always think I don't need to see them in line. I got 30 minutes with them. You guys are just going to get 30 minutes with them one time. I had a full 45-minute conversation with them, so no point of going in that line.
It's a lot of momentum to carry, like interviewing like those particular like big figures. Like I mentioned, like Dr. Temple Griden, and you've interviewed NASCAR drivers, so many different people. Which conversation would you say surprised you the most?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of good conversations and a lot of good content, but I think with just what you could take from people is all these wonderful people that come into my life come in there for a reason. You could take something different for each guest, but the most surprising one I would say is, maybe it's a full circle moment I would tell, is there's a comedian on True TV Presents World's Dumbest. That show has died down, but I still watch it because I have Prime. And he was the reason that I got through my freshman year. When I had a bad day, I could just go turn on the show and watch Brad Loakley, who was the comedian. Well, I figured, well, he might be a person of acceptance because he's a fan of the LGBTQ community. But what I didn't know was after I emailed him, he excitedly agreed to be on the podcast, and it was a full circle moment as he was on my computer screen. He had relatives who had autism, and I didn't know. He failed to mention that to me. So it was definitely a surprise out of the present.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really cool happenstance too. Like to kind of experience that's kind of an out of body experience. And on the flip side of that, you've also been on like guests. You've been a guest on many different podcasts, like right now. Going from something you mentioned earlier about kind of, feeling burnt out after speaking engagements and stuff like that. So obviously you are kind of always go, go, go in a lot of instances with this stuff. How do you manage your energy side of that as someone with autism, like scheduling, the interactions?
That might also have ADHD and just can't stop turning the switch. I think that's why I have sleep apnea as well. My parents and the doctors like to think it's because of autism. I think it's because of ADHD, because my mind doesn't ever shut off and go to sleep. So I think that's why I got sleep apnea. But back to your question, the way I manage the energy is I do my best to relax, but it's always on my mind. Yesterday, a great example was Thanksgiving. So because of it being Thanksgiving, I thought it'd be natural to take the holiday off. Well, I did the Thanksgiving feast, had a blast. But what was on the mind in Sam Mitchell in the back of his head Autism Rocks and Rolls.
You can't turn off the switch, and it's okay. But we have to take care of ourselves. And you'll figure it out. Sam, you're so young. You'll figure out how to honor your body and learn how to give it some rest so that you are recharged for the next day.
There have been days though too where I've exhausted myself, and it's just thinking, how am I going to get through these days? But I think it's what I have to do too, is just get to a point where I exhaust myself and be on my own schedule.
And I think when you have ADHD too, I've been reflecting on this a little bit lately because it's like I work a lot of different jobs, and like what the difference would be if I didn't work a bunch of jobs versus if I worked one job that just covered everything. And I would feel probably more burned out on a single job versus like having 4 to 5 at one time, simply because of that ADHD part of my brain. Like I need to be able to switch around. And if I am not able to do that, I tire out. My energy levels deplete more than if I'm just kind of switching and going from one to another and getting to bounce around a lot. It's interesting the way that brain chemistry kind of works in our world. It's like the same thing when like caffeine puts me to sleep, and I'm pretty sure that's probably ADHD related. I've taken some polls there, and it seems that's a common experience.
Yeah, it is, Jay. It's with me too. I thought of having multiple jobs, but then I figured, well, the problem is that lever might be turning off for sure and never going up by being far away to the right, and I'll get so overwhelmed that I just won't be able to say, guys, I'm done. So I thought
There's
of it,
that
but
too.
I think that lever never going off or not being too far off from being broken. Let's say if you turn the lever and it just goes, lever breaks. Yeah, no. So as much as I would love to do that, it's not possible for me. Believe me, I've tried. I recently worked at Walmart, and having that other job was, I think, a little bit too much. I think I had to decide that I can't get a job in retail just because of it being so unstructured. I had to just say, I'm going to work in broadcasting. Whatever I get, I get. Thankfully, I did get a part-time job at B97, my local radio station. I'll be a board operator for the Bloomington high school basketball games. I'll be starting there in December.
It's really cool.
Just recognizing what's not working and doing more of what's working. Because ultimately it's you, your mind, your body. So bringing that energy back to us is critical.
You have to bring it back to you.
You're doing so many things right, Sam. So really kudos to you. And I bet you have a great support system to be able to do that.
I got a good support system. I got a mother and father, thankfully, and 2 grandmothers who I'm thankful to have. I fortunately lost both of my grandfathers, but the fact that I got 2 grandmothers still, I count my blessings every day for that, because I know some people don't have their grandmothers still existing, but I can definitely go to my mom, dad, grandmother if I need anything. They're the ones who will definitely help you out instead of push you off.
Totally. Tell the audience a little bit more about the nonprofit and what you do and what your also goals for Autism Rocks and Rolls.
There's a lot of irons in the fire through the nonprofit, a lot of collaborative work. But what the nonprofit mainly does and allows us to do is events. We always have a gala in April, a motorcycle poker run every August, then we sell food every fall season in the local pumpkin patch of mine called the Fowler Pumpkin Patch. And then the nonprofit allows me to do speaking services. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a couple of speaking gigs and special education conferences. One was in Oklahoma City and the other was in Wisconsin Dells.
So where do you see like the growth of the nonprofit going, 10 years from now?
It could be a full-time gig and not a side-time gig. Because
that would be preferable.
To be helping at the end of the day, and that's always been the goal with this podcast. It would be nice to make a little money off of it, and we still do, but not much to pay the bills.
It's a bit like trying to dig upward with nonprofits sometimes, but you got your footing in. And with the stuff you're doing, I know there's some books, there's some wonderful stuff you've worked on.
And I got to mention, we do have a children's book in the working. It's in the hands of a publisher.
Tell us a little bit about the children's book. What do you hope kids and parents take away from that?
Well, what I would tell the parents to take away from it is these fixations that those on a spectrum have, like us being fixated on pro wrestling, It's a gift, man. We can do so
Yeah.
much with it. Why I think I can memorize WrestleMania main events? Because I'm on the spectrum. But the book is about this lovely little girl who's now a park ranger, and she's giving a tour of the vicinity. While giving a tour, she's having flashbacks of her childhood about liking trees and learning about taking turns. It's a good idea. I'll definitely give my mother props for it. She's the main author of it.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool.
Bring her on or give her more information, but currently she is Black Friday shopping.
Oh, of course. But would you say like this is a kind of book you would have liked to have had when you were a kid?
Yes, we did. We tried working on another one. It was called, I think Mr. Game was the premises. It was actually based on a true story. The story was that I had planned to go on to a pumpkin patch, but unfortunately it rained out and I was so aggravated with it. But we changed the location to another indoor arcade venue and it was just as fun. But being on Spectrum, it broke my routine and I had a complete meltdown / panic attack about it.
Yeah, it's important. The more we put out through books, through talking, which is exactly what you're doing, it brings awareness in people. And you never know how it's going to touch people, but it sure will because you're doing it with pure intentions.
The intentions are definitely not to be a doctor and just give you facts. I'm telling you why we do this. Here's the ideas you can do. I think that's a problem too. If you look online, it will tell you all the negative stuff. It can tell you that really great. But where's the positive aspects? And where's the ideas of what I could do about a meltdown? Don't really see that a whole lot. Through my research, at least.
No, you're dead on. Everything is very deficit focused. It's only on the negatives. There's no solutions for meltdowns. There's just information about meltdowns. What we'll call as meltdowns. How bad are the meltdowns? How do the meltdowns affect other people? But never really person focused and solution focused.
We went to those 2 special ed conferences. This is a problem in the special ed field too. Yeah. They're trying to fix the deficiencies.
Yes.
They're not focusing on the positive aspects. And this is what I told the special ed teachers and administrators. I said, okay, no, you have to. It's your job. And I get why you have to. It makes sense. You definitely need to work on not biting so you don't have blood coming out of your arm. But for one day, screw the deficiencies. Let's focus on the positive aspects. They like to see things that spin. Let's take it to a science museum one day. Don't worry about the biting. If they bite you, they bite you. Focus on them enjoying the propeller at the science museum.
Exactly. And probably they would bite less, right? If that happened. And it's so, what you said is so important to focus on the positives because, as you mentioned, special ed is focusing on, again, making children fit into the system.
Yeah.
And that's always looked at from a point of deficit. So we need to shift.
The biting, I don't want blood coming out of my arm. You don't want blood coming out of your arm because someone inflicted that on you. So I'm not trying to say that you should just screw the negatives all the way. No, it needs to be looked at, but don't ignore what thumbs ups they can do.
Yeah, exactly. You acknowledge the negatives and accentuate the positives. Like, I think a lot of those spaces, to me, they're very pity based. I don't think that's very helpful. They're not really focused on the person who's actually having problems and how to get through those problems. To me, it's almost like we're trying to make either the parents or whatever system that they need to fit into more comfortable and for them to fall in line in some way. There's no real harm reduction. There's no positive accentuating micro trauma to kind of go through that and be essentially told over and over again, like there is no positives to anything that you do, no matter where you happen to lie, in just special ed, neurodivergent spaces, whatever. Like when you're told that repeatedly, you eventually start to believe it. And going off of the stuff you were saying about like being like obsessed with certain things, like, okay, I there's so many things I am absolutely hyper-focused, obsessed with, ironically wrestling being one of them. And that has ended up being useful to me because I can sort of use that in different ways. Like, yeah, I've fallen into that industry in a very small way, but also like my love of my kind of hyper obsession with certain types of literature or existentialism and like all this other stuff has aided me in just being able to apply it to other subjects that don't seem like they relate, but it gives me an in. Like I can kind of weaponize my obsessions. And I think there's a lot of that, and a lot of people on the spectrum will experience that. Like, all because your obsession's over here doesn't mean you can't utilize it in some way to give you an in on something else that you're having trouble with. Like, there's a way to use your brain more than a lot of those deficit forward spaces really put out there, where it's seen as harmful. I mean, look at the cliche of autistics loving trains, which is seen as a symptom of autism, which is so bizarre when you actually stop and think about it. Like, it's liking trains. It's just kind of a weird thing to put out like blanket statements the entire neurotype over. But at the same time, it's like, why is liking trains seen as a negative just because it annoys a parent or a teacher or something? If you could go back and talk to like your younger self on like one of those days, you know, before you found the podcast, before you found all of these things, what's one thing you'd like to tell your younger self?
Well, I would say now, hang in there, because greatness is arriving. You just may not see it yet, but it's going to come to you. Trust me, you will see that people change, and adulthood is better than childhood. I made a lot more friends now. I have a job where I make money. It's not enough to pay the bills, but something. And as they say, something is better than nothing. I got friends I can text. I still have my best friend who stuck with me in the hard times. I still have a roof over my head. I have a big welcoming house. I mean, what is there not to be grateful for now? And I think I would have also told my younger self to look at what you got. I mean, I met several people who have a home that is dysfunctional. I'm lucky to have both parents, both grandmothers alive. I'm lucky to have a roof over my head. I'm lucky to have home cooked meals. I'm lucky that I get to go to Wisconsin Dells because, as we know, where I think the economy is going, it's hard to travel these days.
I love that you're grateful. I think that's an important quality that everybody should have, because there's always something to be grateful for. It might not be the same thing. People might not have that lucky home base that you do, but if you look around, there's always something, like even a meal, right? So if we switch our inner conversation, our inner talk from being a victim to gratitude, the energy inside of us will shift, and that can be felt by people around us. That positive attitude is really important for us to keep moving forward. Thank you for sharing that message, Sam.
So as we kind of wrap up this conversation, where can everyone, A, listen to the podcast, but also B, learn more about Autism Rock and Rolls as a nonprofit and your other work?
You can find me on your favorite media platform with the podcast. I'm not a hard guy to find. Just Google Autism Rocks and Rolls, not Sam Mitchell, because you'll get a basketball player instead. And believe me, I haven't done any slam dunks lately, so go to Autism Rocks and Rolls for the right information. And then my website, autismrocksandrolls.com, is where you can find all the information about the podcast as well as the nonprofit.
I'll be, of course, sure to include all those in the show notes, as always, at sparklaunchpodcast.com. I want to thank Sam so much for coming on the show. You're a true testament to what's not focusing on the deficits can actually mean to somebody. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for letting me come on, guys.